I've seen a good number of harvested fields, and the numbers do indeed reflect that. The USDA reports corn harvest surged to 63% for the week ending October 28th. That's up from 49% the prior week and equal to the 5-year average. Soybeans are a little ahead at 72% harvested and gaining almost 20 points from the prior week. There's more catching up to do, though. The 5-year average is 81%. And there's news in the winter wheat sector, too. 78% is planted, 63% is emerged, and 53% is rated good to excellent. Doug Simon with Tredas is in the market analyst seat this week. And with harvest getting closer by the day to being finished, I started by getting his take on the crop numbers.
Well, this last week, the USDA showed that corn harvest was at 63%, which was about an increase of 14 points. And we're just about on pace of what we normally are. And you look at soybeans, we were 72% on the harvest progress there. We're about 19% or 19-point increase over last week. And we're still lagging about 9 points, the average numbers. And that was as of what, last Friday, last Monday, kind of when they put that data together. Mm-hmm. We had a great weekend for harvest, and we've had last few days have been really, good harvest weather. So I expect that progress has really bumped up quite a bit. Nebraska was in that 47% level, and the corn side of it, the beans were about 74%. So we've had, I think we've had quite a bit of progress. I was up by Beamer yesterday and up by North Bend, up in those areas. And there was quite a bit of harvest done. I know some of the larger farmers I'm working with, some of them are done. There's some that still have, a lot of maybe another 10 days ago, but for the most part, we've made some really good progress here this last week.
Yeah, they're clearing out for sure.
Right.
I'd also like to talk about basis and carry as it relates to this year's crop. So for starters, maybe give us a refresher on what basis and carry means and how we're looking in relation to this year.
Correct. Well, the basis is always the discount to the futures price, and the futures price on the Chicago Board of Trade. And so that cash price that you have here locally is that futures less the basis, as that's the cash price. And that basis tends to be widest at harvest when most of the crop is coming in, and that big burdensome carry or harvest that's out there tends to pressure that basis. And once you move forward, that basis tends to improve. Interestingly enough, we started out with some pretty weak levels on corn and soybean basis, but this harvest has been drug out. I mean, we thought we'd probably have harvest done even in early October this year. And so the fact that the crop didn't hit the market all at one time, that basis actually come back some here on corn and beans as different processors, try to improve that basis, try to draw crop that's out there in the field yet into their facilities, but also eventually they'll need to improve that to draw that crop out of the bin. And the other thing is the carry for a storable commodity like corn and soybeans. Those deferred futures months are always higher to encourage people to store a storable commodity, as opposed to like cattle and hogs, which is more of a perishable or more seasonable commodity. As the weather has to be a little bit more variable, but that doesn't necessarily always have carry in it. But a storable commodity like corn and soybeans typically have carry in it.
And as far as marketing and selling corn for 2019, what advice do you have in that?
Well, you think back of this last year, we had 90 million acres of corn, 90 million acres of beans, and looking at prices, the low prices of beans right now, you expect that there's probably going to be maybe somewhere up to 3 to 5 to million acres more of corn next year, and probably a similar drop in the soybean acres, maybe some going into wheat and some going into alfalfa and other minor feed grains. But when you look at that, we've hit 405 on the D19 corn board on Sunday night. Mm-hmm. When you look at that price with carry, what we just talked about, you add 12 cents out to that, which is what we had in this market year here. And that's one thing is too for last year's crop, the crop that we were just pulling out of the bin or out of the field. Yeah. If you add 12 cents a carry out to the March or 20 cents a carry out to the May, and you go back and say, let's look at that D19 price at 405 and add 12 or 20 cents of that, getting a price that's up in the 417 range to 425, and you trade a 500 basis into ADM Columbus. That's a good corn price relative to your break evens, and it makes sense to sell an increment of that. And so from our perspective, I talked about this over the last year where we do pre-harvest selling. We're going to look at that crop insurance guarantee and sell up to that insurance guarantee over the year. That's a smart thing to do. Soybeans, when you look at option volatility right now, it's pretty cheap. I wouldn't go out and sell new crop soybeans right now. You could look at using some type of put strategy, maybe sell a call. Those option volatility, because it's so low and it's historically low, those options are pretty cheap. There's some things you could do there. Same thing goes with corn and soybeans. If you have to sell something now, option volatility is so low, those options are pretty cheap. There's some things you could do that are less expensive by using options than it would be to be paying storage necessarily. Or there's good ways that you can keep ownership in those grains and soybeans.
Sure. So what are some of the top questions you've been getting during harvest, and what answers do you have?
Well, it's a lot of the questions have been revolving around where am I going to put my corn, where am I going to put my beans, what are the basis levels, you know, is it going to pay this year to, you know, to store some corn and beans, which I think it probably will this year. And then also looking forward to 2019, that was one of the questions I had from a producer this morning. You know, we sold some corn on Sunday night at 4:05. You know, what do I do with beans? And you know, those are the type of discussions that we have kind of on an ongoing basis at Tredas in terms of how do you manage risk, but then how do you merchandise the physical, and how do you make those decisions and look at those trade-offs?
Yeah, it's tough. So it seems like now more than ever, good risk management strategy is what's needed. Any tips for farmers?
Well, we just always want to keep looking forward and thinking about how the markets are going to change. And when you do like corn balance sheet projections for next year, and if you see a price that's above that $4 level, you know, what can we do to grab that opportunity that's there? It's always better to be forward looking. You know, from my experience, I've been doing this for 18 years. It's always better to be proactive rather than be kind of put into a corner and trying to do things in that manner. And I think that's, you always want to keep looking forward. And there's a lot, I think there's still a lot of optimistic things in agriculture. You know, the population of the world's going to keep growing. I think there's going to be continued demand for agricultural products, and there's opportunities out there, but you always got to keep looking forward in the selling side the same way you do when you're looking at how am I going to structure my production side of it and that type of thing.
And as we wrap up, any news happening with Tredas that you'd like to tell us about?
We've got 13 people in Nebraska, one person in Alabama. We work with farmers pretty much within a 200-mile radius of Lincoln and have good discussions with a lot of really fine, you know, families in Nebraska, and it's a real joy for us to be working with farmers in Nebraska and kind of in a few surrounding states. But there's you know, we do work with crop insurance and trying to really help farmers manage the risk, really try to take the stress out of all these different moving parts in the marketing picture, and by helping them do that, they can really focus on things they love to do, and which is production agriculture.
Yeah, 2018 has been a busy year. Seems like 2019 is going to be a pretty busy one for you guys too.
Good. We love that opportunity.